Chapter 34. It's quite late, the kids are already fast asleep. Julie and I are sitting in the kitchen, we're each holding a warm cup of tea in our hands. I tell her about what happened today at the plant. She seems to be more than mildly interested. She actually claims that she finds it fascinating. I love it. Rehashing the day's events with Julie really helps me to digest it all. So what do you think? I ask her at last. I'm starting to see what Jonah meant when he warned you about increasing the dependency, she replies. That makes me think for a while, but I still can't see the connection. What do you mean? Maybe I'm wrong, but you gave me the impression that you're not too sure that Lou'll be able to come up with a good, new measurement system. That's right, I smile. Is a new measurement system important for you? Are you kidding? I don't know of another single thing which is as important as that. So if it weren't for Jonah's refusal to continue giving you pointed questions, am I right in assuming that you'd be on the phone right now, trying to squeeze more hints from him? Most probably, I admit. It's certainly important enough. And what about Bob's idea, she continues. Do you regard that as something important? If he pulls it off, it'll be a revolution. It'll guarantee that we take a big share of the market. Definitely our problem with getting more sales will be over. And how much hope do you have that he'll be able to do it? Not much, I'm afraid. I see your point. Yeah, I would have run to Jonah with these questions as well. And the same with the issues that Stacy and Ralph have raised, each one of them is essential. And how many more things will pop up when you start to manage the division? You're right, Julie. And Jonah is also right. I felt it today as well. When each one of them spelled out their immediate dream in such a tangible form, I wondered what mine is. The only thing that kept popping into my mind is that I must learn how to manage. But where on earth am I going to find the answer to Jonah's question? What are the techniques needed for management? I don't know, Julie. What do you think I should do now? All the people back at the plant owe you a lot, she says, stroking my hair. They're proud of you, and rightfully so. You've created quite a team. But this team is going to be broken up in 2 months when we go to the division. Why don't you spend the time that's left sitting with them and going over your question? They'll have ample time after you're gone to work on their problems. Anyhow, it'll be much easier for them to achieve what they want to achieve if you have the management techniques. I look at her in silence. Here is my real, true advisor. So I've done what my advisor suggested. I gathered them all together and explained that if each of them wants to be free to concentrate on his pet project, the division must be well run, and in order for the division to be well run, the division manager must know what he is doing. And since I, frankly, don't have the foggiest idea of how to run a division, they had better put their brains to helping me. Thus, we are going to devote the afternoons, provided of course that no special emergency comes up, to help me analyze how the division should be run. I decide to start the meeting with the most naive questions. Initially they might think that I've lost all my self-confidence, but I must expose to them the magnitude of the problem I'm about to face. Otherwise I'm going to end up, at best, with some fragmented, vague suggestions. What are the first things I should do when I assume my new position? I ask them. They look at each other, and then Bob says, I'd start by visiting Hilton Smith's plant. After the laughter dies, Lou says that I should first meet with my staff. You know most of them, but you've never worked closely with them. What is the purpose of these meetings? I innocently ask. If this question had been asked under any other circumstances, they would have taken it as a clear indication of a total lack of managerial knowledge. As it is, they play the game. Basically, you should do general fact-finding first, Lou answers. You know, Bob adds, like where the entrance is, where the toilets are. I do think that meeting the people is important, Stacy interrupts the laughter. Financial numbers only reveal a small fraction of the picture. You have to find out what the people think is going on. What do they see as problems? Where do we stand vis-a-vis the clients? Who has a grudge against whom? Bob contributes, and then in a more serious tone. You also have to get a sense of the local politics. And then, Bob continues. I'd probably take a tour of the various production facilities, visit some of the big clients, and probably even some suppliers. You've got to get the full picture. Maintaining my poker face, I ask, and then? At last I've succeeded to provoke them, since both Stacy and Bob answer vehemently, and then you'll take it from there. How easy it is to give advice when the responsibility is on someone else's shoulders. Okay, wise guys, it's time to turn the table, and in a calm voice I say, yes. What you suggested just now is the usual line of action one takes when he is told to go there and fix it. Let me play it back for you, but in a more schematic way. Where are the colored markers? I grab a red marker and turn to the whiteboard. The first step, as you all have pointed out, is fact-finding. I hold a staff meeting. And what do I find? Oh, here we find fact A, and I draw a nice red circle. And here are 3 somewhat smaller circles. And here is a tiny one, and there are 2 which are overlapping. Now let's talk with another manager, this is very helpful. You see, this circle, he claims, is not as big as we were led to believe. And here, in the left upper corner, are 2 more biggies. Now, someone else reveals to us that some rectangles exist. We check, and yes, he's right. Here there is one, and here and here. And here. We're making progress, the picture starts to unfold. What they actually see is how the whiteboard is getting the measles. It looks like one of the drawings my kids used to bring home from kindergarten. I don't think they got the message, they just seem confused, so I decide to continue a little more bluntly. It's about time to talk with another manager, we must get a sense of the local politics. Oh, this is very interesting, there are also green circles, and even some green stars. Here's an unidentified shape, never mind, we'll address it later. Now, let's tour the production facilities, visit clients, and even some suppliers. We're bound to reveal many more interesting facts. As I talk, the board is filled with overlapping shapes. Now that we have the full picture, we can take it from here, I finally conclude. And put the markers down. Well? The board looks like a nightmare in Technicolor. I take a deep breath and pick up the phone to order more coffee. Nobody says a word, not even Bob. Let's make it less personal, I say after a while. Suppose that we are a committee that's been given the ungrateful task of find out what's going on. How do you suggest we should start? They all smile. Somehow pretending that we're a committee makes us feel much better. The safety of being part of a herd, I think to myself, the blame will not be aimed at anyone in particular. Ralph, will you volunteer to describe the committee's actions? They would probably start in the same way, fact-finding. And as you so vividly demonstrated, they would end up in the same colorful ditch. And here, in the left upper corner, are 2 more biggies. Now, someone else reveals to us that some Rectangles exist. We check, and yes, he's right. Here there is one, and here and here. And here. We're making progress, the picture starts to unfold. What they actually see is how the white board is getting the measles. It looks like one of the drawings my kids used to bring home from kindergarten. I don't think they got the message, they just seem confused, so I decide to continue a little more bluntly. It's about time to talk with another manager, we must get a sense of the local politics. Oh, this is very interesting, there are also green circles, and even some green stars. Here's an unidentified shape, never mind, we'll address it later. Now, let's tour the production facilities, visit clients, and even some suppliers. We're bound to reveal many more interesting facts. As I talk, the board is filled with overlapping shapes. Now that we have the full picture, we can take it from here, I finally conclude. And put the markers down. Well? The board looks like a nightmare in Technicolor. I take a deep breath and pick up the phone to order more coffee. Nobody says a word, not even Bob. Let's make it less personal, I say after a while. Suppose that we are a committee that's been given the ungrateful task of find out what's going on. How? Do you suggest we should start? They all smile. Somehow pretending that we're a committee makes us feel much better. The safety of being part of a herd, I think to myself, the blame will not be aimed at anyone in particular. Ralph, will you volunteer to describe the committee's actions? They would probably start in the same way, fact-finding. And as you so vividly demonstrated, they would end up in the same colorful ditch. He continues when he realizes that Bob is about to object, let's arrange them first by color, within color by shape, and within each subclass we'll arrange them by size. This way, everybody will be happy. Count on Lou to find an acceptable compromise. It's a marvelous idea, Ralph picks up the ball. Now we can submit our findings in the form of tables and histograms. It will be a very impressive report. Especially once I pump up the graphics package. Minimum 200 pages. Guaranteed. Yes, an impressive, in-depth survey, I say sarcastically. We all sit silently, absorbing the bitter lesson we've just taught ourselves. You know, I say after a while, it's much worse than just wasting time producing useless, pompous reports. This overconcern about the proper way to arrange things manifests itself in other harmful ways. What do you mean? Lou asks me. I mean the merry-go-round that we're all too familiar with, arranging the company according to product lines and then changing it according to functional capabilities, and vice versa. Deciding that the company is wasting too much money on duplicated efforts and thus moving to a more centralized mode. 10 years later, we want to encourage entrepreneurship and we move back to decentralization. Almost every big company is oscillating, every 5 to 10 years from centralization to decentralization, and then back again. Yeah, says Bob. As a president of a company, when you don't know what to do, when things are not going well, you can always shuffle the cards, reorganize. Mockingly he continues, that will do it. This reorganization will solve all our problems. We stare at each other. If it weren't so painfully true, we might laugh. Bob, I say at last. This isn't funny. The only somewhat practical ideas I had in mind for what I should do as the new division manager were all based on reorganizing the division. Oh, no, they all groan. Okay then, and I turn back to the whiteboard, which is not so white anymore. What is one supposed to do with this pile of colored shapes, except to arrange them in some order? Dealing directly with the pile is obviously totally impractical. Arranging the facts according to some order, classification, must be the first step. Maybe we can proceed from there in a different way than writing reports or rearranging the company, but the first step definitely must be to put some order into the mess. As I continue to look at the board, a new question starts to bother me: in how many ways can one arrange the assembled facts? Obviously, we can arrange them by color, Lou answers. Or by size, Stacy adds. Or by shape. Bob doesn't give up on his suggestion. Any other possibilities? I ask. Yes, of course, Ralph says. We can divide the board by an imaginary grid and arrange the shapes according to their coordinates. When he sees our puzzled looks, he clarifies, it'll give us the ability to construct many different arrangements based on the shape's relative position on the board. What a great idea, Bob says sarcastically. You know what, I'd rather use the dart technique, throw a dart and start arranging the shapes according to the order in which we nail them. All these methods have just as much meaning. At least my last suggestion offers some satisfaction. Okay fellows, I say firmly. Bob's last suggestion has really clarified what we're dealing with here. We're dealing with the fact that we haven't got any idea of what we're doing. If we're just looking for some arbitrary order, and we can choose among so many possibilities, then what's the point in putting so much effort in collecting so much data? What do we gain from it, except the ability to impress people with some thick reports or to throw the company into another reorganization? In order to hide from the fact that we don't really understand what we're doing? This avenue of first collecting data, getting familiar with the facts, seems to lead us nowhere. It's nothing more than an exercise in futility. Come on, we need another way to attack the issue. Any suggestions? When nobody answers, I say, enough for today. We'll continue tomorrow. Same time, same place.